Hi, and welcome to Behind the Shot. This is Image Critique Show number 27. Hi, welcome to Behind the Shot. I'm Steve Brazill. Thanks to everybody for joining me. I am here doing Image Critique Show number 27 with some good friends. I'll bring them on in just a second. Real quick, I do want to remind you, because these critique shows are only available here on YouTube, that if you head down, you can participate in the chat and the comments and all of that stuff right down below the subscribe and the like button, and on your way down, if you'd hit both of those. If you do hit subscribe, make sure you also hit the bell. That way you'll know every time I do something, whether it be streaming these image critique shows live with Dawn and a guest, or the normal Behind the Shot shows. Also, I do want to thank DVE Store for the high-def video. We've got high-def video thanks to DVE Store, and you can visit dvestore.com for all your digital video equipment needs. Let's get into the guests. First of all, always with me for the critique shows, the one and only Mr. Don Komarechka. Don, how are you?
I am well, Steve. I mean, technical issues aside, it's behind the scenes. Before we start one of these things, there's always something that goes wrong.
Yes,
and
always.
Somehow by miracles at the 11th hour, it's always solved. And so you don't really get to see that, but the pressure is now off, because by that same miracle, everything is wonderful right now. I am just sleep deprived, so I'm well caffeinated and going back to bed after this. If I'm a bit surly today, Steve, you know why.
Yes, I definitely do know why. And I want to welcome our guest. This is a friend of mine from Australia, G Hunder. Michelle, welcome to the critique shows.
Thank you so much for having me. I can see some familiar faces in the chat. So yeah, it's going to be great.
For those of you that don't know Michelle, Australian music photographer extraordinaire, Nikon Z Creator, amazing at doing live music, at doing promo stuff, lots of album covers, and was recently, just a couple of months ago, a guest on the normal Behind the Shot podcast. So check that out. And we'll talk to Michelle more and Dawn more, obviously at the break. Couple things to let you know about really quick before we dive into the critiques. First of all, the normal podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. It's in audio only or video. That is assuming that your outlet of choice for podcast supports video. So you can subscribe to it there. These critique shows, as I say, are only here on YouTube, and the normal shows, the video is here on YouTube as well. I do want to also point out that I've started collecting some discount codes. Interesting. YouTube is not receiving what it needs. Let me just bail out on this for a minute and figure out why I'm getting looking forward to the episode, but YouTube is telling me it's not receiving enough data. Well, that's rather interesting, isn't it? Everybody that's in there, before I continue with this, is the video looking okay to you guys?
I mean, they're talking amongst themselves, so
Romy's here. I see that.
It's as if it's still the pre-show banter that people aren't chiming in. Nobody's commenting on my surliness. Oh, hey, no, everybody's there. It looks fine.
Yeah, they think cool.
Well, the problems. Yes, I have the Plataball, the Plataball Ergo right here. I love this thing. Steve, you're muted. Check the chat. What people are saying?
Oh no. See. Oh no.
This is so glad the technical problems aren't mine. I don't know. Can people hear me? I don't know.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm here, and Michelle can hear me, but I don't know if other people can hear me.
Yeah, they can.
everybody
They
but
said that
Steve.
they're fine.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, all right. This is where if you have a dram of whatever it is your persuasion is in front of you, drink.
This is why I'm glad that it's not my stream for once, because usually the technical difficulties are mine and it's so stressful. So, yeah, we will.
Yeah. Steve is rebooting his software right now. And if one thing is a surefire bet with technology, if you turn something off and then turn it back on again, it will magically fix problems, sometimes unpredictably. And Steve, okay. The software.
Gotcha.
All right, we should be
They're
back here in
saying
just a
that.
second.
They're saying that.
Check 1 2. Check. Check 1 2. All right, we should be back now. At least we should be in just a second. There we go. All right, everybody got me now?
Yep, I think they have. They're all saying yay.
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 Yay, that's
A
good.
reboot will solve almost everything. So, back what I was saying. I can't cut this out.
Steve,
So
just
life is what it is.
before you go any further,
Yeah.
your video is still showing us, Michelle and I, a blank icon screen that hasn't been restarted. So
Okay.
I can live with that, but I'm just
No, that's all right.
Okay,
I'll
yeah.
just reset.
Oh, there we go. We're back. We're back.
There
No,
you go.
it's gonna change back. I gotta reset the virtual camera because I rebooted all my software. There we go. Now you should have me.
Yep.
All right, we're back in business,
Always
baby.
right.
Troubleshooting. Well done.
And well, you know what's funny? I went into this whole night going, this is going to be a good night and it's going to be smooth. The best laid plans of mice and men. Anyway, go to the website, behindtheshot.tv, check out the discount codes. What I was saying is they are not affiliate codes. I am not making any commission on these. I'm not recommending things to you that pay me money. These are just codes for, usually it's been somebody that's been a guest on the show before that was kind enough to share a code with my viewers. So head on over to behindtheshot.tv and you can find all of those codes. All right. So with that in mind, did I miss anything? Don, why don't you do this? Why don't you let people know what the goal of this show is, how people can get in on the critiques, all of that type stuff?
Yeah, the goal here is to insult everybody. No, the goal is to take an in-depth look at images that are submitted to the Behind the Shot Flickr group. And we chose Flickr as the platform because it displays images very, very nicely. It's got a community element to it. So join the Behind the Shot community and post images there. Have a conversation about your photographs, but if you want them to be potentially, because there might be too many, picked to be discussed by the panel of 3 here, put in the tag btscritique on Flickr with their tagging system. And that kind of gives us the permission, both being a part of the group itself and having that tag to discuss the images here. And then we choose 9 of them on a monthly basis. And here we are to discuss them.
Sounds good. And one last thing is I mentioned it each and every show. Scott Kelby did a blog post over at scottkelby.com called What to Expect from a Photo Critique. Talks about the fact that, you know, the person putting their image in has as much responsibility as the people that are critiquing it to, you know what to properly expect from it. I highly suggest that you go read that. And real quick before we start, I got to say hi to Jane because it's 7 p.m. where they are. Stephen Wilson is here. Who else is here? David is here. Terry Wagner is here. William Carpenter is here from Buffalo. Robin Chun is here, Bristol, England. Is it Isea? I'm not sure. Jazz is here. Jazz Meadows. Michelle, you know Jazz. Romy is here. Who else? Evelyn Tu. We got a shot from Evelyn Tu in here. Kilo Hotel. Derek Carr. We got a lot of people in here. Again, to everybody, I apologize on the technical issues, but hey, it is what it is. You guys ready?
Yes.
Ready for
it.
All right. So, Michelle, I probably should have warned you. We do this thing where, because you're the guest, we ask you to go first. Okay?
Oh.
So
Gosh,
for
okay.
image number 1, this is Jess and Cody. What do you got?
Awesome. Well, immediately I love the composition of this image. I think, you know, it's obviously taking rule of thirds into consideration. I love the positioning just inside that barn. I think it's the light, I guess, hitting them looks really, really lovely and really flattering. And I love how they're just positioned just behind the door. The thing I really love about this shot, which is quite subtle, but the flowers on the left-hand side that are kind of framing the bottom of the frame, I think is a really lovely touch. And yeah, I mean, I really like it. It's very, very pleasing to the eye. I'm assuming it's probably a couple's, you know, like an engagement or some type of photo shoot. And, you know, if I was this couple, I'd be pretty stoked with this image. I think it's great.
Okay. And then, Dawn, why don't you go next? And real quick, some people are saying that we're all a bit fuzzy. Because I stopped and restarted the stream, you might want to refresh the page. And for that matter, there's a little gear in the bottom right corner. Make sure that's set to 1080 and see if that helps. Robin said that it looks better. Dawn, what do you got on this one?
So I agree with everything that Michelle said, that the lighting is flattering and very soft on the people too. But I think that there might be two missed opportunities here. One, it just nags me and bugs me that, you know, if you're going to pay attention to lines, the image has a lot of vertical and horizontal lines. You've got the very nice horizontal line across the top with the metal, and I like the spacing on that. But on the very left edge, the wood panels, the barn boards are not perfectly straight. And so simply by taking a transform tool, I don't know if you want to use warp or perspective or something, just to stretch that top out to make that even. And it might not have been even in reality, but it still bugs me when I've got that kind of sliver of black hitting the edge of the frame there. And if this is a scenario that you have control over here, and you might not have access to it, but if you had a light and a softbox, you could probably hide that inside the barn, behind the barn boards on the right-hand side, just to illuminate them a little bit more within that space to create a bit of extra separation between them and the hay that's behind them. If you don't have those tools at your disposal, I'm not going to be upset, because I do like the lighting and it is somewhat flattering. If you didn't have them, then maybe standing just one step a little bit forward into the available light that's there, rather than the darkness that's in behind them, to create that separation. You wouldn't find anything different in the framing of the image otherwise than just more light on the primary subject.
Okay, so Dawn covered almost everything I was going to say, and I should mention it's morning and evening for these guys. It's morning for Dawn, it's evening for Michelle, it's 10:30 at night for me. So Jack Daniels on the rocks. Okay, so great location. One of the biggest things I always have trouble with when I do these type of shots is just finding a location that I think is unique and different and opens some possibilities up. This one, I think you found a great location, and I think in general, I really like your approach to the composition and framing here, where you put the barn doorway open on the right with just enough open to see them without it being too close to them, right? You did give them some room behind him and in front of her. I like that. It's on a rule of third. You kept that darker wood beam going across at the top, showed a little bit above it. I like that. Not totally straight. And what Dawn said on that left-hand side, you got to straighten the vertical lines. It feels like you're not shooting this true to the verticals. However, the things that I think would make this image way, way stronger really do almost all revolve around the crop. They're too low in the frame. I can see the barn floor, but just not enough of it. And I can see the tops of flowers, and they feel chopped off. I'd rather that you framed this lower. Show me a little bit of the ground. In my head, this is like dirt outside a barn. I'd like to see that with the plants. If it's parking lot, I don't even really care. You need to open it up below them a little bit. I think it would help a lot. The other thing that I would say is lighting, and Dawn touched on this. I don't think you need a softbox. I don't think you need anything inside. If you even just had a small, I mean, those would be great. But if you don't have that, if you can't afford that, a small LED light that you carry with you would just add a little bit of fill to their face and make it smoother. And this, to me, is the biggest one. The white balance is off to me. This would look much nicer barn-style wood that's a little warmer to me. I think if you just brought up, I'm gonna go, temperature maybe plus 10, plus 15, tint maybe plus 10, 10, 20, 10, plus 10 or 15 or 20. Take this JPEG in to Lightroom or Camera Raw, boost those a little bit and look at the difference. And I think you'll actually end up liking what you get there. Anything else on this shot, guys?
Good comment about the white balance, Steve. That's something that often people don't remember, that even subtle variances within that can make a dramatic impact in an image.
Yeah, I actually did bring this into Camera Raw and look at it, and the wood pops, and it gives this nice, warm feeling that I really liked. I would suggest trying it. Don, do you want to go next on Architecture BW for black and white?
Sure. Well, the name is apt, I suppose. It's a black and white architecture picture. So talk about black and white. I think that there wouldn't have been much in the way of color in an image like this that would have been powerful. It is really a contrasting set of lines. And sort of like on the previous image, paying attention to the verticals and the horizontals here, they're lined up quite nicely. So I'm happy about that. But the more I look around the image, the more I kind of scratch my head. There's a couple of things that I like and don't like. Number one, it seems to come in and out of focus randomly. And I haven't been able to figure out exactly why, unless there was some sort of tilt shift lens being used. Because I'm looking at the bricks along the bottom of the frame, and the bricks right below the center tower are more in focus than the bricks on the left or the right. And so it doesn't play with my mind's understanding of what a proper focal plane is going to be doing here, unless something has been shifted or tilted rather in a way that's just somebody playing around. And that could be kind of cool. But I don't think that's my preferred use of tilt shift technology. The other thing is the background. And it looks like it might be replaced or heavily processed based on there being an edge, most notably around the tallest tower on the left-hand side of it. It's got this weird glowing edge with like a bright glow and then a dark glow and then the background. And that's a sign of editing that if I didn't see that, it would be a lot more believable. And so just pay attention to those edges where things match up if you are going to be doing an edit like that, because I don't mind the sky being that brightness level. I think it actually suits the image quite nicely. But if I'm constantly being distracted by the signs of an edit, then I'm not so happy about it.
So I love this conceptually, but for all the reasons Don said, I just wish that there were some things that were different in it that I think would make it. This has the potential, a good way to word it, like when you're buying a house, right? This has great bones. There is so much potential here for a really cool piece of fine art, striking black and white, great building for black and white. But again, to me, it's all about the crop. Yes, what Don said about focus is very, very true. But for me, the crop, there's not enough at the bottom. I'm seeing half of doors. I'm seeing half of windows. I'm seeing little teeny pieces of tree sticking up. Now, you may have done that because the bottom is parking lot that has cars in it. Okay, so go back when there's no cars. Or take a couple of pictures from the exact same spot so that you can combine them. So car is here, car is here. Go back later when there's only a car here and sandwich those together and stitch them all together to make the shot that you need. The processing, yeah, the sky, I don't think the sky was swapped, but I think the sky's over-processed. I've got banding in the corners from the vignette. You got to be a little careful on what your black and white processing does for those halos, for that banding and things like that. Michelle, what do you got?
Yeah, my comments are actually very similar to yours, Steve. I thought I wanted to see more at the bottom of the building. I felt like seeing just the half. Obviously, like the line where it's cropped, it lines up really nicely and it's quite pleasing to the eye, but it's just I'm wanting to see more of the building. Like it's just chopped off for me. So definitely wanted to see the bottom half of the building, and the banding was the other thing that I was going to say about the processing with the sky as well. They're the two things that I noted. But I do like a really contrasty black and white. One of my pet hates, and people that know that follow me on Twitch, I know I don't like a wishy-washy black and white. I like a really punchy black and white, and it definitely gives me that. So I like that about it. But yeah, just I think a little bit more down the bottom. I hadn't noticed the focus thing that you pointed out, Don, but now it's all I can see, and I'm very confused by it. So good pick up.
Yeah, and the thing is that was controllable in camera. I wish they had fixed that. We've got a couple of comments on this one that I think are interesting. First of all, Stephen Wilson said, I like the tones of this, but the line at the bottom of the image, similar to the previous one, needs to be expanded. And then Gary said, cool shot, but maybe this is interesting. I don't know if I agree with this, Gary. Maybe crop off the bottom above the door openings.
Oh, like a Titachrome.
So I think what he's saying.
So you remove all the distractions on the bottom of the frame, the trees and everything else.
So crop it like right there or lower.
Yeah.
I think you mean just above the doors.
Yeah, and then you could crop it like right there.
Yeah, maybe there.
Something like that. Yeah.
I think that it would feel kind of closed in.
That's my feeling too. I don't know that I agree.
I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting concept to explore because at that point, it's like there's no doors and no openings.
Yeah.
Almost like you would find in like a prison building, even though it's a church. And then you could maybe draw some sort of juxtaposition about churches being prisons, but we're not going to get religious or political on this podcast. But you could easily make imagery that depicts what you want it to, Gary.
And actually,
so
I'm going to add one more thing to this that just hit me. I think the angle of attack is wrong. So you can see that there's a cross on the left-hand side and that it's a church, but you're kind of far around to the right of that, and you can't really read the name that's on that wall. I think if you were to move a little bit camera left and come in a little bit more of an angle from camera left, I also think that would make this a stronger image. Okay, next shot. I will go first on this one, and this is called Broken Beat, and I'm going to start here. I love, love, love this for many, many reasons. Again, there is so much potential here. Your background color, your color palette and color harmony is wonderful. You got a ladybug, for God's sake. Yes. And it took me a second to realize this as I was looking at this picture originally when I was choosing it. And it took me a second to realize it's not just four random separate things. This is the circle of life, right? It starts with a bud on the right, then it goes to a bloom, then it goes to the seeds, and then it's deadish. These are all dandelions, and it goes through the cycle of the dandelions. I like that. It feels oddly backwards because I read left to right, and yet its life is going from right to left for me. But I kind of like that the dead one's on the left, so I'm not sure I totally disagree with it, though. Here's what I would think would make this a stronger image. The lighting is too flat. First of all, your background I like. The bright in the middle, the halo, the vignette around the center spot, I think is awesome. But there's no depth in your lighting on the stems themselves. I need a little bit more left to right lighting to give me some texture and some depth and some 3D on this. Other than that, I mean, if that lighting were a little bit more, I don't want to use the word contrasty, but directional, I'd print this and hang it as a piece of fine art. Michelle, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's such a beautiful image and definitely something that you'd have on your wall at home. I think it's gorgeous. And I love, I didn't even pick up on the concept. So thanks for pointing that out. I think that's awesome. I find the lighting a little bit hot in the center. Like my eye keeps being drawn to the center, and I'd actually like that to be, like you were saying, a little bit more directional and picking up on the detail of the item of the flowers rather than I keep being drawn to the background because there is that kind of hot spot in the center. That's my only takeaway with the lighting. I'd like that to be, the background to be a bit more even and there to be a bit more pop on the flowers.
Okay. Don?
So I love this image, first of all. I don't mind the fact the center of the image in the background is less saturated than the other, the edges of it, the vignette as has been described, partly because it allows for the yellow of the dandelion flower the only one that is still actually a flower, to be a point of saturation within the image, as well as the ladybug itself, having that extra pop of color intensity in those areas. What might be a hard thing for people to pick up on, and I might be misreading it, but dandelion stems, they don't like to bend onto these nice curves. And so when I see that, I like it. I love it. I think that it's quite beautiful. I don't know if it's actually real, because I can see some subtleties. No, we don't. But I want to, like, for anybody listening or watching this, I want people to realize that you can mess with this in post and it's okay. You can use the liquefy tool to bend and twist these stems to be on slightly better arcs than you otherwise would, in order to create nice curves in an image that are beautiful and guide your eye around the frame. And I think it's completely okay to do that. And if the photographer did that for this image, then my hat's off to you. And there are some subtle signs at the very bottom of the stems where they're perfectly straight before they start to bend and meander a little bit, that might indicate that. I might be wrong, but I'm saying that is an okay tool in my book. And an image like this reminds me that that's something that I need to use a little bit more often as well.
Yeah, and this is an interesting comment from Gary. Looks a lot like a colored pencil drawing. Not sure about the hue of the background though. Maybe more opposite color wheel version. And I don't think that I agree with that. Do you guys like? I don't like the color.
I don't mind the colors at all. In fact, as I mentioned, the background, I like it a lot, in the sense that I know that it's also a controllable element, and it's very deliberately chosen to be
exactly
soft
how I feel.
Like this. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Exactly how I feel. All right. Let's go to the next one. And Michelle, we're going to have you jump in on this one. And this is called Cool Music on a Hot Day Detail.
Awesome. This is the stuff that I really like to shoot. So I first of all, I love the black and white. I love the contrasty black and white. Like I mentioned before, I think it really shows the detail of obviously the player's fingers and the instrument, which I really, really love. The crop's really weird to me. It's not quite square, and it's definitely, it feels like they've obviously cropped into the frame, and I'm missing information that I want to see in this photograph. I definitely would want to see the bottom of the instrument. I think it's come in a little bit too tight. I don't necessarily need to see the musician's face, but I think for me, I would have loved to see the bottom of the instrument. And I probably would have taken a step slightly to the right. There's something about the front on angle that's it's bothering me in this. I think I'd rather just be, if I was just to the right a little bit and shooting just across, just getting a slight angle, I think it would have been a little bit more pleasing. I can see that, like, there's a nice directional line of the instrument that runs straight down, but for me, I think I would have liked that to be on a bit more of an angle. But yeah, there's definitely elements of this that I really like. So yeah, good stuff.
Don, what about you?
I think Michelle made a pretty good comment about the crop being a bit odd. I want to see the connection between the mouth and the end of the instrument. And you have them both there, but both just barely in the frame. And I'd like to have a bit more on the top and the bottom to kind of make that connection a bit stronger. How else can you hear the sound in this image? Because obviously it's somebody playing an instrument. And the more I look at it, the more I want one of those buttons to be pressed down. And I know that seems like a small thing. And I know that not pressing any button down on a trumpet is also a note too. And so it's not completely improper, but just to have some greater interaction with the instrument. The upper right-hand part of the image is also a bit hot. I would try to pull that down if you had any latitude to do that. But if it's just overexposed, you got to run with it.
Okay, so I have a lot on this one, and I didn't think I did, but now I do, based on what you guys were saying. First of all, going for detail. The idea of this shot is detail. Going for detail is always good. I love tight detail shots. Tight detail shots. This is not wide enough and not tight enough. You went in the middle and you didn't commit to it, right? It's kind of like that barn shot where it's, look, if you're going to do environmental couple portraiture, embrace the environment, go wide. So what if they're a little smaller? You got to commit one way or the other. You can't hedge your bets here. In this case, what you put in and what you leave out matters. The fact that I can see a little bit of the mouth, but not all of it, and only really the chin, is uncomfortable and unflattering, and it's the same with the instrument itself. An instrument is an extension of the musician. There's an old saying in music photography, and we break this rule all the time, but in general, try and include the headstock on a bass or the headstock on a guitar. It's part of them. It's like their arm, right? You don't cut it at an uncomfortable position. It's the same with this horn. And what Dawn said about the fingers is actually not a minor thing to me. When you get somebody playing a guitar, it's usually considered to be best that they're not just like this, but that a finger is up here or there because it shows gesture. And having a finger depressed here would show some gesture and be really, really nice in that case. Yes, the shoulder is hot. I would do this. I would either crop down below the mouthpiece and above the bell of the horn and make the hands the story. The hands, in fact, my next guest coming up is Joe McNally, and he talks about hands in the episode. It comes out, I think, on the 8th or 10th of February. I think the 10th of February. It's a Thursday, whatever it is. But I would make the hands the story here and really just kind of commit to it. I think the contrast here is good, but I would control the highlights a little bit more to add mood. And there was a comment from Alexander in the chat that I now cannot unsee, and I did not see it before, and it's absolutely killing me that I didn't see it before. There is a tire behind this guy over his right shoulder. And I cannot believe I didn't notice that, but now I cannot unsee the tire that is over his right shoulder, camera left, and it's killing me. So that's kind of where I'd be with this. Comment-wise, we actually have some really good ones in here. By the way, Terry Wagner said, send in love. But there's Alexander saying, shame about the tire in the background. Also said, pretty good, but I'd love to see the lips. For me, it's either way. Either I want to see the lips or commit to it and just go hands. Steven said, I'd like to see more of the face and eyes of the musician. Yeah, but again, detail's nice. Terrell is here. Terrell, welcome, buddy. If they were going to be this tight, I would have gotten rid of that tire in the background. See, now everybody is seeing the tire. I cannot believe I didn't notice that tire before.
I'm with you, Steve. I didn't see it either. And same boat.
I didn't see it. Yeah, I didn't see
I
it.
now can't stop staring at it.
Yeah. Isn't that the weirdest thing that somebody points it out to you? Romy's going, tire?
Yes. I think if you had taken a step to the right and then shot a little bit lower, then that would have been hidden behind his shoulder. So you would have been able to crop it out with his shoulder if you had have just taken a step that way.
To the camera right, which would have been a nicer angle, I think, on the horn. Robin saw the tire too. So. First thing that hit Robin. I cannot believe I didn't see this. Dawn.
That's so funny.
You get to go first on steam bath.
So there's a number of things that I absolutely love about this image. It's difficult to shoot this and get the whites and those really light tones to feel nice. And I can tell, something that has been done here to lighten up the bottom. It could even be as simple as taking a white layer, just pure white, and then using a gradient on that as a layer mask to kind of fade that in from the bottom and then adjust its opacity down a little bit so that you're pulling the contrast out of the bottom of the image. And I think that works really well directly against the dark eyes and bill of the swan on the left hand or the right hand side. I think that if you're going to go that far, try to aim with a bit more consistency though, because the leg of the swan on the left, I would want that to be just a little bit darker to match kind of the butt feathers of the swan on the very right, because it seems like there's a bit of a contrast differential between the left and the right hand sides of the image. And I just want that to balance out a little bit more within the frame. I think the cropping is excellent. The use of negative space on the top of the frame is wonderful. In fact, I might have even put a little bit more space around it. And I can see that they have added some space based on how it was originally framed, because some content-aware fill has been utilized that you can just barely tell if you look at the very left edge of the frame, where sort of where the swan's neck is at about the height of the image, but right at the very edge of the left side, there's a wave pattern that kind of disappears abruptly into nothingness. So pay attention to how content-aware fill is filling stuff in, and it's okay to use that as a starting point, but then go in and manually correct any of those little things. Give it a little bit of caressing, if you will. This image just needs some of that final polish. I wouldn't do anything else to this.
Love, love, love this. Love it, love it, love it. This, if this were an image competition, I'd rate this really highly. I'd probably give this an 85. It's just really, really well done. Everything about it. The pano style crop was brilliant for this. I wouldn't add more to the top, but if you added a little more to the bottom, I mean, I'm talking a smidge, right? I don't think it would be a bad thing, but I don't need you to. The fact that they're all kind of faded away, right? Except for the one main head that's on camera right that has the color in it, the focus in it, the contrast in it. The way you played with textures and contrast and color and focus and detail here is nothing short of wonderful to me. But everything is soft and faded except that. And then behind that main swan, where you can see the color in the bill, in the beak, go behind them, and the heads that are down and the tails that are down are really dark. And it's a complete disconnect to me. Like if you look right behind the head to the left and to the right, there's dark areas. I would actually dodge those a bit to make them blend in a little bit more. Maybe I would also add a little touch of detail back into the water. Not a lot. I'm talking real subtlety here, but a little bit of detail back into the water might be neat. But overall, this is fantastic to me. Michelle, what do you think?
I don't really have anything to add from what you guys have said. I love this image. Yeah, love the crop. I love the amount of detail that's been left in. I love the negative space. It's yeah, a really great image, and great comments from you guys.
And let me add this, because I mentioned the darkness behind the main head, but Stephen actually said the breast on the bird on the left is also too dark, and I don't disagree with that. And then Gary said, ooh, very nice. Could be the logo on a pack of toilet paper. I got to say it never hit me. Gary, I appreciate that. Or Alexander said maybe napkins rather than toilet paper. Oh, God, I love you guys, man. This is so awesome. Okay. With that, let's go to a break here really quick. We'll come back with the final images here in just a minute. But before we do, I want to talk to Michelle here for just a second. I've known Michelle for a while. I was on Michelle's Twitch channel, and we did an interview there. Jazz Meadows, who was here earlier, I don't know if Jazz is still in there, has been on the show, and a lot of great photographers, music photographers generally, have been on Michelle's Twitch. Michelle G Hunder from Australia, music photographer, press, promo, album covers. You're doing a lot of stuff now that's more studio stuff, right?
Yeah, I guess because we don't have as many shows and tours at the moment. I mean, I've always done studio work, and it's been my bread and butter. I've always done press shots and album covers for artists, but I guess not being away as much as I have been in the last couple of years, I've definitely reconnected with the studio. I just started a new light painting series, which has been really challenging and exciting, and every day I'm trying to get in the studio as much as possible, and every time I try it, it's like completely different, and it's technically really challenging, which is really good for my brain at the moment. So yeah, it's been fun, been a good couple of months.
And if people want to follow you on Twitter and Instagram, it's at Michelle G Hunder, Hunder. Yep. And is that what it is on Twitch too?
Yes, it's across all my socials. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Okay, and you got to check out her Twitch stream. She's on a hiatus right now, but when she comes back, just go subscribe to her channel now. That way you'll know, if you're into Twitch, when she comes back, because she does image critiques on the show. She does community stuff on the show. She's got a great community built around her. And then what's your website if people want to go check out your work?
Yeah, it's michellegracehunter.com. So nice and easy to find. And just wanted to say hello to Arthea in the chat because she's from my community. So thanks for coming to say hello. My poor Twitch community, I haven't been streaming for about 6 weeks. So I do need to jump on soon. We're just having a little bit of a break.
And your community there is so good, so kind. It's a lot like when Adam and I were doing our shows. It was just the music community in general is just an amazing thing. Dawn?
Yeah, they're lovely.
My friend, now in Bulgaria. How are things for you?
Things are great. I mean, the village life is a dream come true here. Things are wonderful. Haven't had a whole lot of time to really pick up the camera in the last while, but getting back into the swing of things. And this coming week, we actually have flowers starting to bloom outside, which to me in February is very unusual from where I came from in Canada. So it's a new adventure, and everything is really happy, and I couldn't be happier. One of the issues that I'm currently having is internet speeds are slow but improving, and I have a gigantic 4G antenna that I have to install on the outside. So there's just always these projects happening. And I just riding the wave, man, just enjoying it and having a good time of it. And yeah, people want to follow my musings, hit me up on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. Those are all linked to at doncom.ca, donkom.ca. And look forward to having
You forgot your podcast. You got to mention your podcast.
Oh, yeah, of course. And Steve, you're a great guest on there, and I should have you back on in an episode coming up soon. There's some great stories that I know you'd like to opine on, and that is Photo Geek Weekly at photogeekweekly.com. The last episode that I published, actually, I've got one that is going out later today with Martin Bailey. He already published it on his stream because we kind of did a joint thing, and Martin is a wonderful guy, and that's a great conversation. So I look forward to that soon as well.
And Martin's got a great podcast too, Martin Bailey podcast, that you should definitely check out. I do got to say, Derek is in here. Derek, also a music photographer, bummed that Canada doesn't have shows right now either. Yeah, that's kind of all of us. Min Nguyen is here.
Hi, Min.
Hello.
Hi, Min.
Is that one of your community people?
Yeah, he's an amazing music photographer and videographer. He does some really great animation stuff. He's just so brilliant. Like, love Min. He's great.
Okay, so now we have to ask. Alexander wants to know, Dawn, have you learned any more Bulgarian yet?
I have. Always trying to pick up new words, watching Bulgarian TV. And one of the things about languages, if you've never learned a second one, and it's dramatically different, you don't know where one word stops and the next one begins when you start hearing somebody speak it. The sounds all link together until you listen for longer. And then you can hear the sounds in chunks a little bit more readily. And I'm at that stage where I can start to ask, what's this word? What's that word? Because I'm now defining them in my mind as separate words. So yeah, the adventure continues. You're muted, Steve.
You're muted.
You talking about living village life. Gary said, now imagining Dawn as Ava Gabor version of Green Acres, which I will never get out of my head. I'm going to have to do a Photoshop on that one. And David said the swan shot actually was from a Martin Bailey photo tour.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is wonderful. Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Great.
All right, so let's get back into it, and let's jump into some other shots here. This next shot, we will have me go first. And this is, and let me, before I bring it up, Merrily Jim is somebody that I originally found because when I had Aunt Pruitt on the normal podcast, at the end of the podcast, I asked people to say, look, is there a photographer that, you think more people should know about and follow? And Aunt Pruitt mentioned Jim to me. And I've been following Jim, and he does some amazing, amazing street photography, really puts out a lot of good work, and had a shot in the pool for image critique. So this one is called Merrily Jim Reflected Street. And I love generally what Jim shoots, as I just said. I think that he tends to include what matters in a shot and exclude what doesn't. So this shot surprised me. I love the cars. I love the fact that the cars are different colors. I love the warmth of the building and the lights and the reflection in the puddle. I love how low you are, that the foreground asphalt with a puddle helps set the scene, helps balance the sky, right? So I've got sky, I've got ground, it feels more balanced. But the crop here is what's really making this shot stay from reaching its potential. I only need the cars that are full, or at least mostly full. Like, let's take the 3 cars in the middle, the red, the blue, and the one behind it. Okay, depending on how you crop it, I might lose some of that one on the far right. I'm okay with that. But the Jeep, the tail end of the Jeep that's in the frame has got to go. The cars on the left, they've got to go. They're killing this shot, and this shot has so much potential. What I would do is, or what I'd recommend even the gym does, make this portrait orientation. So actually go in and let me see if I can find it. Close. I'd cut like right there, and I'd cut like right, I missed it. Sorry. Trying to look at my screen and that one. Cut like right there, and I'd make it portrait orientation. And I think, and then of course, also you need to straighten your verticals because there is a tilt in this. There is a perspective to this. If you did that, left me some of the gravel, left me some of the sky, I think this shot has just absolutely ton of potential. Michelle, what do you got?
I actually wanted to see more of the frame. I actually wanted to see it in landscape because I agree that crop is really weird. It's the first thing that really jumped out at me. It's just not right for this particular photo. And I think because the cars are cropped to the side, I wanted to see more of them. So I think a landscape shot I would have preferred for this. I also think I could see what they're trying to do with, having the center line and the reflection. I actually would have preferred, I think, more of a rule of thirds, like actually seeing less of the gravel and that car line sitting lower and seeing more of the sky, I think would have been my preference. But those 2 things I would have liked to see. I think I would have liked to see it a little bit higher or a little bit wider. But yeah, I think that the intention and the idea is really great. The color, like the actual processing is really beautiful. The colors are great. Just the crop's really weird for me.
Okay, Don, what do you got?
So the idea here, this is a puddle in a parking lot. How cool is that this is making a really compelling image, or at least the idea itself is compelling, and the way that it can be executed, I could think of a whole bunch of different ways to kind of tear this apart and put it back together. You guys have mentioned cropping. If I was to do that, I would even think to cut off everything that's not in the reflection, so just have it an image of the ground, and that I think would kind of tell as much of a story as would be needed for what this image truly is. It's a puddle in a parking lot. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing, but embrace that, make that really the true entity of the frame here. But, with phones these days, and this is taken with a smartphone, you have the ability to get right down to the ground, which is what we're seeing here. Angle on different angles. Not every phone is waterproof or splash proof, but I have been so tempted to partially dunk my iPhone in water in order to get an interesting image. And I haven't done that yet. I haven't been gutsy enough to do that. But that could be if I was presented with a scene like this, it might be enough to say, okay, I'm going to get my phone just a little bit wet here and go into the water if I'm sure that I'm not going to break anything as a result. There could be a lot of different ways to explore this, aside from just cropping. I would spend an hour out photographing the puddle in the parking lot, and everybody around me would think that I'm crazy. And I probably would be, but I'd still be having a good time.
Yeah, the landscape idea, and other people in chat agree with that. I don't disagree if you could get wider. Problem is, what I have in front of me is not, and working with what I have in front of me, I would crop it. If this was the only capture you got, I'd go portrait. If you could go retake it again, yeah, that would be a completely different story. Mario Supnet is here, and I just have to say hi to Mario because Mario I met in Vegas when I did the David Bergman Shoot from the Pit workshop. And wonderful guy. We had a blast doing that workshop together. David, by the way, is the current guest on the regular podcast at BehindTheShot.tv. All right. Anything else on this image before we move on? Nope. Okay. This one, Michelle, is for you, and it is Untitled.
I love this image. I want to put it on my wall immediately. I don't really have much negative critique about this. There's
It's
something
funny.
about
I just have to interrupt you. It's funny you say that because that's the first thing I thought of was this needs to be on a wall.
Yeah, I love the simplicity of it. I love the crop of what I'm seeing. I really don't have much to say about it. I really, really like it. I think it's great. I think it's ready to put on someone's wall immediately. So it's a big tick from me.
Okay, Don?
So it's a tough image to critique because I like it so much, but there's a couple of things that I would, like to mention here. Number one, and this is such a rare occurrence that I see it in an image, so I'm going to point it out. I'm seeing moire in I'm guessing it's a very fine grid on the left side of the frame. And you've got a alternating band of blue and orange kind of washing across that fine mesh. I would just desaturate those colors and kind of smooth that out in order to remove that effect, because that's clearly just created by the camera and the sensor, and it doesn't need to be a part of the image. But I love the juxtaposition of colors. You've got the green on the left, followed by green accents in the middle of the frame. There's sort of a bluish tone on the whites on the left side, echoed a little bit in some of the window frames on the right. The image has these little subtle hints that my mind bounces back and forth and all around on. I keep moving my eyes around to all those tiny little details, and almost every one of them there's a reward for looking at. And so kudos to the photographer for framing it exactly this way. The one thing, because I just keep looking around at all the little things, very top of the frame, near the left side, in the green, there's a tiny little dot that's kind of dangling down into the frame. It's just a couple of pixels, but if I had to be picky, I would have cloned that out or cropped so that wasn't there in order to just clean things up. But I love it.
Yeah, first of all, what a cool building for a photo. There's so much texture here. There's so much color palette here. The saturation is high and yet not unrealistic. I believe I could be standing looking at this wall in front of me if I was there. It's not overcooked. And so many people would overcook this image. And I just want to say to the maker of this image, well done on you for not overcooking it. I'm torn by that fence on the left. Part of me wants to get rid of the fence. That wall that's behind it, that's the bluer color, maybe crop into the next wall, just past the window. And I think that would be a cool shot if you completely took that out. But at the same time, that color adds to the image so much. So I'm kind of torn on that. And the other thing I love in that section that makes me not want to crop it out is where that like half window is, where like the wall is eaten up and broken. There's just so much here to love. I don't have a lot to say about it. And yet there are some really killer comments that I think really kind of sum this up as far as an image is concerned. We've got John Clayton is saying that it's timeless. And to me, that's one of the biggest compliments you can give a shot, right? Alexander said doesn't find much wrong with it. Gary, I got to have you here with every show. On a wall, ironic, isn't it? Stephen likes the softness of the colors. And the comments go on and on with people even talking about it being, dirty. BBB1MMM1. B1M1? Okay.
That is the photographer, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I made that photo. It's Istanbul, Europe side, over-processed with Darktable. Well, I will tell you, it is awesome. Local contrast enhancements using wavelets, the contrast equalizer tool, steep curves. Okay, let me just tell you, this shot is freaking awesome, dude. I think you just did a fantastic job at it. Like literally, I think it's one of the better shots that I've probably ever had on this show. It just really, really well done. Anybody else got anything left on this?
It needs a cat.
That's great.
It needs a cat?
Yeah, put a cat on the roof. I think you'd be, yeah, it would just put it up to 11 there.
Yeah, a cat on the roof, or, you know, I just realized it's a wall that doesn't have graffiti on it. That's also hard to find nowadays. Well done. Well done, my friend. Okay, next one up. This one is drip line. Don, why don't you get us started?
So this is pretty cool. I mean, I do a lot of macro work, so you know, I can probably see an image like this a little bit differently than you guys. So I'm going to mention the shallow depth of field and how it's typically something that just can't be avoided, but it seems like it is embraced within this image here, where that the very thin line that you can see on the left edge cutting through this sort of piece of wood and kind of leading that line of focus up and across the frame, almost like a 90-degree angle, using the focal plane as a guiding point across the image, I think is a really novel use of the information data that we have here in the image. And you know what? The refraction in the water droplet, it's not really telling me a fantastic story. It's showing me the rest of that plank of wood and whatever is beyond that in the background. So there might be a missed opportunity there, but it's just that one droplet that's in focus that you'd be able to even tell what's inside of it. The ones in the background, they fall out of focus so beautifully that you've got this really nice geometry that forms in the out of focus specular highlights and the bokeh that is generated as a result of that. I think the only missed opportunity is possibly, you know, taking something like a flower and placing it behind that water droplet to fill that up a little bit in that one little small section of the frame. But if you're just walking across, you know, on a hike and you see water droplets on a random twig and you make an image of it, I don't know if you could get much better than this. I really like the way that it came together.
You know, it's interesting to me. There's a couple things you didn't mention that I honestly, I had you go first on this one for obvious reasons. And there's some things in this image I really thought that you would mention that I immediately
I had to leave you something to talk about, Steve.
I know, that's got to be what it is. First of all, I love the colors, the table color compared to the background color. You've got almost some weird lighting patterns with a dark vignette in the upper corner. The kind of unbalanced balance I actually really like here. The super shallow depth of field, but it's not tack sharp. And to me, there's too much of that table in the foreground, at least the blur of the table. I don't mind that it's long and forward, but I think I'd cut that table at the bottom in half probably. I just feel like there's too much of it. And then the bokeh pattern on the far right, and in fact, through the whole image, there's motion blur. Motion blur moving at about a 40-degree angle from top right down towards bottom, from top left down towards bottom right. And it's causing visual motion blur in the bokeh, and then on the right-hand side, kind of odd cutoff shapes. And I'm not sure I'm feeling that. Me personally, it almost feels like there's water droplets on the lens, and maybe this was an artistic choice. I suppose that's possible. But for me, those ones on the far right, I don't need, and I don't need that much table. Michelle?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Dying to hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, no, I agree about the table. There's too much table for me. I think I just like to be just that little, if it was cropped in a little bit, I'd just be that little bit closer. I don't mind the motion blur. I'm not sure if that was an artistic choice or, like you said, it doesn't bother me. I think it's quite a beautiful image, so it just kind of adds a little spice to it for me. But yeah, I just think that the most distracting thing for me is that I just wanted to be in a tiny little bit, and there was just a bit too much table. But I think I love the contrast between the colors. I love the actual color processing. I think it's really beautiful.
Agreed.
Yeah, really interesting, really interesting. I mean, I don't shoot anything like this, so I really like looking at stuff like this. I don't do any macro at all, so really, really great to have a look at an image like this.
Well, and in some ways, though, this has that blur effect, and you do a lot of blur.
I do, yes.
That's
maybe
part
that's
of the
why
reason.
I like it.
And that's what I was thinking. That's why I was so excited to hear what you were going to say about this, because I was wondering if that would connect with you. Somebody else mentioned, Ryan Heffer mentioned, that the texture of the wood is distracting. Loves the red and blue, but the texture of the wood. And I agree, because it's so much of a sliver. It's just, it's getting to me. Final image.
That's a great comment.
And for the final image, let's go ahead and have Michelle go first. And this one is called, I'd Probably Try Another Way Out.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, if you're looking at like a photojournalistic type shot that tells a story, this is definitely telling a story. It looks like there's something it's flooded and there's people trying to cross a footpath, and it's and they're running, which is really great. You can feel the momentum and the running. I immediately wanted to make this photo black and white. There's something about the highlights and the contrast in this that for me, it just would have been an immediate black and white photo. And I think maybe because it does feel a little bit photojournalistic, there's something about it that I would have loved to see it in black and white. I like it. There's like great leading lines. The people in the background are a little bit distracting, but when you're doing stuff like this, obviously it's difficult to always make sure you crop people like that out. But it's, overall, I think it's great. It tells a story. I just would have loved to see it black and white. That's my comment.
Okay. Dawn, what do you got? Now I'm going to refresh the picture to get those little triangles out of there.
So this image to me, it's got a photojournalistic feel to it, which I like. You've got, I have a lot of questions about, what this pathway is. Obviously, those barriers on either side of it are there in a permanent place. So maybe this floods often. I have no idea. So that part of the story is missing, and I'm very curious about it. And maybe that's just on me. But
see, you really? To me, I see the bank of a river in the back. This is like a footbridge across a low-lying river to me.
Well, sure, but it's definitely flooded, but to me, the real story, Steve, is the person in the background walking on the barrier, that wearing their shoes with the water running over it, barely balancing. That's the story for me, because that's not going to end well for that person, or at least it doesn't look like it will in this image. And that is a far more powerful image than the person in the front with their dog that just decided to take off their shoes and go for it, which, that's, we see how that's going for them. They seem pretty happy about it. That story is told. I really want to know what's happening with that person in the background. And that's the frame that I would have taken myself. But, if I was there, I would have taken 100 shots, 1,000 shots, because every person's interaction as they walk across this would have been beautiful, because everybody's approaching it a different way. And I would camp out there the whole day and just keep snapping.
See, I'm with Terrell on this one. Terrell said my kind of shot. Don't need the old trees on the left, in my opinion. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do agree this is my kind of shot. Evelyn is the one in the chat that made this image. Said it's a flooded walkway in Neshaminy Creek. And what Dawn said, let me get rid of those arrows again. They keep coming back. There we go. What Dawn said, I completely agree with. The girl that's walking on the barrier, first of all, there's a lot of gesture in this. Great capture. When you're talking photojournalism, Michelle alluded to the moment for photojournalism. This is the moment for photojournalism. I don't necessarily agree with going black and white. While I think it would be an amazing black and white, I think from a journalistic point of view, I could see this color picture in a newspaper. I could see this scene being filmed for a television report of a flooded creek. The gesture that's in this, the girl in the back walking on the barrier, arms up, 1 foot off the ground, perfect timing for capturing this. The girl in the front, nobody mentioned, has her shoes off and her shoes are in her hand, which is also fantastic juxtaposition there that somebody was willing to leave them on. The people in the background, I wish it was a different angle, but I think it adds to the story and makes it look like it's not posed, right? If it was just the two girls, you'd feel like, oh, you took two sisters out there and said, do this. This feels like a photojournalistic moment, and there's so much going on here. The water is brighter than the subject, though. The people are the subject, all the people. Expose for the people's faces. Then, if the water is too bright, burn the water back down, so that your subject is the brightest spot in the image, because the water is right here much brighter. Even if you're going to leave the people exposed like this, bring that water back down. I don't mean literally like drain the flood, like burn the highlights down so that it's not so reflective in this particular case. But overall, just a really, really nice moment, nice capture. What did Evelyn say here? It's I had my single focal length macro lens on. So this is a macro lens. Interesting. And then there's typos, obviously. Let's see, what else do we have here? Don mentioned shoe. Oh, Don, did you pick up on the shoes off?
I did
heard you
mention
say
the shoes,
on.
yeah, because
Okay.
the person in the foreground, she's already kind of committed herself to making it across with the shoes in her hand, and so I did mention that. Steve, your comment also, the people in the background, I think that is helpful. If I was to be out here, I would probably have a macro lens on as well, because I'd be looking at the tiniest details and trying to find some compositions within that. But that it's a good point to say that the 30 millimeter macro lens on a micro four thirds camera is a really good walk around lens in general, not just for macro work. It's a swell street photography lens, portrait lens in many different ways as it's being used here too.
And Ryan made a comment that I'm going to actually disagree with, and that was crop slightly more on the right-hand side, closer to the barrier, and wondering what that would achieve. And I disagree with that, and here's why. Michelle also mentioned leading lines. These leading lines come almost vertical on the right, up a rule of third. The other one leads towards it. You've got the bank across the top rule of thirds, which is part of the reason I'd leave the trees there, because if you cut the trees on the left, it would throw the right-hand side of the image off. And then Terrell actually makes a great comment, and that is that as a photojournalism shot, it works perfectly, all the elements captured here, but you can never forget the people that are taking these shots could be in harm's way as well, so they may be snapping them very, very quickly and then getting out of harm's way. Anything else on this one?
Great shot.
I think we're good.
I think we had some really, really good shots today, man.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very
let me
impressive
say,
work.
I'm really hoping that when we had the technical issues and I had to reboot OBS to get audio back, I'm hoping people don't stop there and go, oh, the show died, and keep going, because we have some great shots. And when I went picking the images in Flickr, in the Behind the Shot Flickr group, remember you have to have the picture in the group and you have to tag it BTS Critique, because there are some amazing shots that people are putting in the group and I can't put them on the show because they're not tagged BTS Critique. So if you want a shot to be considered for the show, you've got to put the Flickr tag on there, BTS Critique, so that we know that you're willing to have it critiqued, because I don't want to critique it otherwise. Michelle, where can people find you?
Michelle G Hunder on all of the socials. You can find me on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. That's where I'm mainly hanging out. Not so much on Facebook these days, but occasionally you might see me there. Feel free to drop me a line, say hello, come on to one of my streams. If I should start streaming in the next few weeks, I think.
Okay, and welcome back to your house, because you've been gone for a little bit.
Yes, and potentially, Steve, this is information for you. I might be in America next month, so fingers crossed, we might be able to catch up.
West Coast?
Hopefully. Yeah, so hopefully I'm going to try and go over for South by Southwest and then spend a little bit of time in LA. So if that's the case, I will let you know for sure.
Okay, we need to connect offline, because there's stuff that we need to do if you make it out this way. Don, my friend, where can people find you?
Doncom.ca or doncom.bg for that matter. All of my socials and everything else are linked to there, and photogeekweekly.com for the podcast that I hope you all listen to as well.
Okay, and Photo Geek Weekly is one of my favorite podcasts. So folks, if you are not subscribed to Photo Geek Weekly, make sure that you do. Don has a guest host on each show, usually weekly when he can, and usually picks 3, 4, sometimes even 5 kind of bizarre photo-related yet geek-related stories and covers them, and it's just one of the best things. Thank you, both of you, for doing this, man. It's been fun.
Our pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And quick reminder for everybody, if you want to join on this, go to Flickr, free account, paid account, either one. Join the Behind the Shot group. Make sure once you are in the Behind the Shot group, you can submit any images you want just for fun. But if you want them considered for this show, make sure that you add the tag BTS Critique. As always, thanks to my co-host Don Komarechka. Thanks to our guest this time around, Michelle Hunder. Always good to see her. Follow her on Twitch, subscribe to the channel, support the channel, because you can actually buy things on that channel to help support Michelle, which is great for creatives, by the way. This is Behind the Shot. Join us next time as we critique some images here on the Critique Shows, or check out the regular podcast. That comes out bi-weekly every other Thursday. Completely different concept, available wherever you get your podcasts in audio only or video format, or the video is here on YouTube. We'll see you on the next show.